and the sister or cousin was getting married, so he was supposed to be the best man with the girl he had been engaged to, which he was no longer engaged to. And I was just a bridesmaid, but we met at the reception. And I guess we had the same, we were going to school for almost the same thing, and there was something to talk about. He was shy. He was not a very outgoing person at the time. But, and he lived there, so that we got to see each other at the store, and we had a lot in common. And so we started going out places, just very short little, excursions. Our big thing was taking the bus all the way to Shandon Hills, sitting there while the bus turned around, and then riding back to the beauty school and having coffee at the little coffee shop right next to the beauty school. And I don't know, it was a slow kind of a friendship that grew. It was, and I'm glad that it kept on growing. We got married. We were married for 30-some years before he passed away, and it was, I think we were still growing, still learning about each other, or teaching each other things, which made it very nice. I didn't realize what a good marriage I had until I started hearing from other people.
And how many children did you have?
We just have 2 boys.
And their names are?
There's Ronnie, and he's the oldest one. He's 5 years older than Ernie. And we raised them in South Colton, right a block from where my husband had been raised. He came from Barstow, and he was only 7, and had lived in the other section of South Colton in the beginning, but then lived over at La Palomas, I believe is what they call that area.
That barrio was La Paloma.
El barrio La Paloma.
Sí,
And so when we got married, he had this home built for us for when we got married. Right on the street, my mom had the store built.
Across the street from the park?
Across from the park. We lived right on the corner of 10th and O. And we raised our boys going to Wilson, and it was kind of a sore spot that people would still say, send them to Lincoln. Wilson doesn't have good teachers. You don't want to keep your kids at Wilson School. You don't want them to know that you live in South Colton. So you don't have a break if you live in South Colton.
So that was a big stigma, eh?
It was, you know. And I didn't live it, but I heard it from my husband and other people that the tracks were the dividing line. You know, the south of the tracks was the Mexican section. If you were out in North Colton, you were out of your area. Go back to South Colton where you belong. Go back to the other side of the tracks where you belong. And so, but after the service, young men started to think, we belong anywhere. We can go anywhere we want to as long as we behave. And so when we got married, he was working in the Santa Fe, and but his dream was to have his own shop. He worked part-time, worked at the Santa Fe, and then part-time for Mr. Ornelas, what was the other one?
Llamas.
Llamas, Caldera, and Ornelas.
Ornelas, yeah. Cruz Ornelas.
Cruz Ornelas, and who's part of the family now. And his grandson is married to my niece. And there's Caldera and Krista, what was the other real famous name in South Colton?
Let's see, Llamas had a lot of property on 7th Street.
No, Llamas was not what he worked for, but it was Cristobal Caldera and Cruz Ornelas and it was in there. I'll think about it.
Now, when did he open up his own shop?
He opened his shop must have been around 1955. But he worked for Moy Flores, not for Moy, but rented from Moy right on La Cadena. And that even made him want his own place more and more. At first,
there was a corner of La Cadena in N Street.
Yes.
Okay.
And he rented a place there and was kind of happy there. But he still dreamed of having his own little place, fixing it up the way he wanted. So we got a chance to buy a little corner place across from Mr. Navarro's little grocery store.
That was on N and 7th,
Yes.
N and
And,
7th Street, huh?
So with quite a struggle, we built a little shop for him there, and he was so proud of it that even after he lost his eyesight, he didn't want to rent it to anyone else. He still thought he would regain his sight and he could go back to barbering. But that was his big attainment.
Well, he did a good job, very successful, because everybody wanted a haircut from Nacho.
Well, and you know, the other part of being the barber and living there in South Colton and all that, to him was, it opened a new world to him, because now he could put a lot of his ideas into other people's minds, what he had thought, what he had done, and this was a big part of his job to him. Not so much just cutting hair. He was very proud of a good haircut. You never left his shop with a ruined haircut, or you wouldn't pay for it. If you moved and your hair, or you had a boil in your hair and he had to stop, he wouldn't charge you for his haircut. It was his pride. You had to come out of his shop with a perfect haircut.
Mhm.
I remember they were wearing flat tops.
Yes.
And
yes,
I swear, he used a ruler to do the flat top, because he was so proud of his flat top. But he was a young person, and he could understand young people. Even when their parents brought him in, he could kind of fix it so that both were happy, the dad or the mom and the child. And so that part, but being able to praise what people did, share ideas with them, help them attain what they thought they couldn't, that was a big thing to him.
Connie, there was a Chamber of Commerce. Did he belong, or was he allowed to belong to the Colton Chamber of Commerce?
I don't know if they were before the war,
Uh-huh.
but after the war, you could see that a little bit. You know, there was Mr. Mendoza and Johnny
Jeremias Martinez, Johnny Martinez.
He was a young man that dared, to speak up and want to get into those places.
Mhm.
Some of the older people might have ideas, but they didn't think they could do it.
Mhm.
So I think that's what Nacho liked,
Mhm.
opening it up so that, yes, I can do this.
Mhm.
I can belong to the council.
Mhm.
I can do what I want to now. I have a right.
So a lot of people the thinking started that, Pascual Oliva and Pete Lukey and some of Manuel Padilla, they all thought that we should participate in our community and we should start running for office. Was Nacho influencing them, or was he? Did they visit him and ask for his advice, or?
The Olivas were a very proud group of young men. And Mr. Nuki had a lot of, he was independent too. I think he thought for himself, and he always wanted. But they thought their bigness could not go further than South Colton, And so they started kind of thinking, hey, we can move out of South Colton. We can belong to other committees, other places that not just Mexicans belong to. And Mr. Luque was an icebreaker for that, very criticized by some Mexicanos, because of course they felt, no, he doesn't have all the education he needs, but he had the power to convince people, and my husband did help him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he got ideas from my husband, but my husband helped him when he needed to run for offices, when he needed to get people to listen to him,
Mm-hmm.
and also the Olivas. My husband joined the American Legion when he got back from the service. And,
was that the Fidel Hernandez
yes,
Legion post?
that's it was one young man from Colton that was killed that they named it after.
Mm-hmm.
And his cousin, La Cabrera, Jacinta's son. And so he started telling people his ideas, and maybe at first he was a little shy about getting into running for office himself and that, but he was very good at making them feel good about and helping them campaign and all that. And spreading his ideas in the barbershop, you know, because a lot of men now were getting a little more positive about themselves and thinking, yes, what I do know is important. And that was something that my boys inherited from my husband, that you can do anything you want to. I don't care where you were born, and you can learn anything you want to, and no one can take it away from you. They can take material things from you, but they can't take what you learn. So with him, because he didn't have the education and didn't have opportunities because of the lack of education, that was a big thing for him.
And then your son Ron, good ball player at Colton High School.
That was another thing. My husband had not been allowed to play sport. So if the boys wanted to participate, he was right there. If they wanted to play baseball, he was there coaching, helping the coaches, helping raise money for the teams. If they wanted to go try a new sport where not many Mexicanos went, you know, like bowling, we went and we learned to bowl with them so that they could participate. They won trophies and all of that. He took up miniature golf, he took up bowling, even a simple thing like going to the beach. He had never been able to do that when he was growing up, so he didn't think too much of that. But the boys liked it, so he did. He loved horseback riding. He taught them how to ride horses. By the time Ronnie was under 3 when he started going with him. He taught him to fish. Good, clean fun that he liked. He loved the mountains. He loved being out in the open, you know, enjoying fresh air and all of that. But it was the schooling, as far as he was concerned, led to everything. And music, he loved music and was good. Learned to play different instruments without any lessons. When our boys were taking lessons, he would help them with them, and he had never studied music. But so both the boys grew up being in a school band, which I guess at one time was not open to a lot of Mexicanos either. But by that time, he got involved. He was the president of the Parents Club, so that he could do something about their raggedy uniforms that they had. That way he was in there raising funds. We sold corn on the cob at the Patio Supremo for the 16th of September fiestas, which he never would have done. But because it was to raise money for the high school, he wasn't embarrassed about doing it. And the boys were very involved in recreation because of their love of sport. That was their job that they enjoyed. Both of them did. Both of them. I'm very proud of both of them participating in just about anything and doing the best they could.
Well, you know, I do remember, as a matter of fact, I ran across a little girl. She's an adult now and has kids, but I remember Nacho was Santa Claus. Nacho was Santa Claus, and he went to our house for a couple, 2 or 3 or 4 years, and the little girl still remembers she being 3 or 4 years old and getting a present from Nacho the Santa Claus.
Really?
Yes.
You know, that used to please him so much. His big dream was raising funds to give a toy to each child, not just a little bag of candy, but a toy. And that was a big event. We used to get together to buy the things. When he joined the Legion, they didn't participate in a lot of community activities. It was mostly a men activity. You know, you're a Legion member, you get together Fridays, you drink a beer and you talk about things. But when he joined it, he had a purpose. And so he loved being Santa Claus. He had never had that opportunity when he was little. There was no Santa Claus for orphan kids, right, you know, that didn't have relatives. So that was something he really loved doing. To this day, when I see a picture of Santa Claus or a party with a Santa Claus, it brings back to mind, because that was his big thing of the year. Dressing up as Santa, parading all over Colton, and advertising to the kids that they were going to be passing out candy at the church. At first it was at the corner of N and La Cadena that they did it, and then later it was at the church parking lot. But that was a big thing to him. And the boys continued that. When I was working with little children, they would dress up in his Santa uniform to go pass out candy to my kids that I worked with. Both of them did it, both Ronnie and Ernie. And it was part of his life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It was, but I know the little Bilges boy
Yeah.
also.
Tony.
Tony's little boy, I forget
Yes.
his name. And so he was out in the yard when Nacho went by in the truck, you know, advertising where he was gonna be. He ran inside the house, you know, his mom said, we didn't take him, we didn't need to, we thought that was for needy kids, you know. But he came in running, Mom, Santa knew my name, you have to take me. Because he knows my name, and he wants me to be there to get a bag of candy. So, and he was little when that happened also.
Well,
probably.
they do remember that. People do
Yes,
remember that.
and he was so happy
Yeah.
when he found someone that would remember him as Santa. He just thought that was beautiful. That was his big thing. And thank God he encouraged me. I was, I wouldn't say timid. I was used to working with adults, but I didn't have a very good self-image of myself.
Well,
I didn't.
you mentioned that you didn't like working at the store, you didn't like to be a beautician, and the other thing was that you taught, you were a teacher. How long did you teach for?
I only taught 12 years, Tommy, because I didn't go back to school till I was 48. I graduated with my teaching credential at 52. But I think that had been my dream. I had always, that's why I hadn't found my calling yet. I loved teaching. I worked first as a volunteer in school. And then when Dr. McCoy opened her program, and you were in the advisory group at that time, I remember I got really excited about it. It's not a teaching job, a full-blown teacher, but I was going to get to work with children.
Mm-hmm.
And I had done that as a volunteer since my kids started school. And so it was, I got my feet wet working with kids, and she opened up a home tutorial program. And then she kept taking me to conferences where there were only teachers. And so when Saber opened up this program to teach bilingual teachers, they offered it to people that were bilingual, first of all. Second, to people that had experience working with children. And I got chosen. I don't know, to this day I don't know who recommended me. But I was afraid. I was afraid because I'd never graduated from high school. I was afraid to tackle a college career. So but my husband encouraged me a lot.
Good.
And so did my voice.
Well, you were a teacher, and Connie, you also wrote about your sister's Rachel, her restaurant. You wrote a little story that's in the Colton Museum. How did you like writing?
I love writing because I was shy. Writing was one way I could tell my feelings, you know. And so I think if I hadn't been a teacher, I would have loved to have been a journalist, talking about people, not tragedies and bad things, but about people. I love people. Mm-hmm. I'm a people's person. And I wanted people to know what my sister had struggled. And her kids didn't seem to see it. They took everything for granted. Mm-hmm. And I had seen her raising 5 kids. And with my brother-in-law working, he was very helpful with her. But it was something to me. And I wanted people to know, you know. So because I like writing, I started to, and I was so fortunate that an article came out of the paper asking for you to write about Colton citizens. And I thought, well, people need to know about her. So that's when I tried writing, and I loved it. The man was so encouraging, the one that accepted. And even at first it was just a newsletter for the museum. And then it got put in there. And of course, by then her kids were really thrilled about it. And they were happy that I was doing it. I remember her son asking me what gave me the idea to write, that he never knew all those wonderful things about his mom. And that's what I liked about writing, telling people something.
Mhm.
I wrote about my husband, about him and his plants, what plants meant to him. And I wrote about Ronnie when he participated in the California tournament at UCR. And it was, I wrote about little kids living as Mexicanitos in the United States. All the things that were coming out with a bilingual thing, an idea was Mexico, how things were in Mexico. But our children were not in Mexico, they were here. It was a very different thing, you know. And so I wrote about Frankie and Libby's little girl and her little experiences when I was in school.
What's the little girl's name?
Andrea Gonzalez.
Yeah.
And it's, I figured, you know, yes, we are Mexicanos, and yes, we do love raspados, and we eat Mexican food, and we have barrios, which we didn't know. I didn't know about barrios when I came to Colton. I didn't know I lived in a barrio until then. But I loved that because I thought these people that they're writing about, all these doctors that are writing about, you know, books about Mexicanitos, they're talking about Mexico, but not here. So that's what I got encouraged to do. When I took the literature class, she advised me to write children's books. But I'm not very creative. I couldn't think up stories.
Well, you picked the right subjects and the right topics. But Connie, I thoroughly enjoy reading your story on the Dale's Restaurant. Thoroughly enjoy that because it gave me a wonderful sense of history of the restaurant, and also the some of the things that the evolution that it went into developing the restaurant as it is now. And you know, I want to thank you again for being with us this afternoon. Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoy this our discussion this afternoon.
Thank you.
And like I said, once we finish this project, I'm going to give you a copy of the audiovisual that we did today.
Well, you know, my kids dream of me writing about my childhood in Arizona. When I talk to them, you should see my daughter-in-law. They want to know this and they want to know that. And my kids say, Mom, write while you still, and Nacho used to call it while I still had all my marbles.
Well, we're looking forward to that. And again, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you, Tommy. I enjoyed it too. It was very pleasant. I've known you for years, and let me tell you, I've always admired you. You were one example I've always set up for my kids. Look at Tommy, look at Ernie Gomez and Ernie Garcia. That's who you want to be like.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.